Welcome to Exit the Matrix, Stories of Success, with your host, Jane Slack-Smith, where we celebrate the incredible journeys of individuals who've transcended their limitations and achieved extraordinary success.
Hello, I am your host, Jane Slack-Smith, and welcome to another inspiring episode of Exit the Matrix. Now, today I have an incredible individual with me. I have Angela Ehrenreich, and she has mastered the combined laws of money and enlightenment, prosperity. She has a rare wisdom combination gifted to her off the back of 30 plus years of being a master spiritual teacher and 18 years in her own Vancouver-based accounting firm. So what an incredible package that is. Now, look, she has done so many things, and we will get into that a bit later. She's an international speaker. She's shared the stages with people like Joe Dispenza, with our own Olivia Newton-John. She did, in actually fact, live in Australia at one stage, which is kind of exciting. She's worked with Bishop Desmond Tutu. She's worked with the Dalai Lama. She's worked with the King of Mongolia. It's like nothing this woman has not done. But we are so very, very fortunate to have her here with us today. Hello, Angela.
Hello, Jane, and thank you for such a beautiful introduction. I'm really, really pleased to be here. Thank you.
Now, I understand you're in Costa Rica at the moment. That's a bit of a change from Australia and Vancouver.
Yes. We came here about 12, 14 months ago, and within about 6 weeks, we decided we're going to live here. So, and within about 3 months of that, we bought property and we've begun to build. And I mean, there was an ending of my time. I was 15 years in Australia, and I just got the messaging, you're done here, Ange. It's time to move on. So I'm a very obedient student, and I just went, okay. And my husband, you know, his parents had passed away, so he was available to move. So yeah, now we're in Costa Rica, and it's hot, man. From Queensland to Costa Rica, it's not that big a deal, but
just less kangaroos. Less kangaroos?
No kangaroos, zero kangaroos, but monkeys. They got these howler monkeys that are just fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Well, you've given me goosebumps already, listening to the messages and taking action, which is more important. But I'd love to ask you a few questions about going way back in time for people who are listening and are sitting there going, you know, I'm sitting here in my life and up and just running off to Costa Rica or taking life by, you know, a grip in my hands and pursuing what I want to do. You know, it's not always easy. So if I take you back to a point earlier in your life before you had this, you know, real intuitive type of inspiration that you were following and the way that you manifest that in your world today, can you take me to that time and tell me a little bit about it?
Well, to be truthful, I would say I was about 11 years old when I had this kind of shift in consciousness. And that was the time when my parents split up.
Right.
And I was already very spiritually connected. I was already being divinely guided. I already, like that was already on track for me. What I struggled with was my humanness. Mm. So most people don't struggle with their humanness. They just go about, like you say, you know, what's the status quo, what's expected of them, and then they have a spiritual awakening. I had more the opposite. I kind of had a human awakening. And I would say the first big one was when I put the booze down. I was 33, and I was drinking alcoholically. I've been an alcoholic, you know, since I was 14, blackout drinker, just, you know, didn't know how to cope with life, basically. Mm-hmm. And I did the best I could, but I was getting nowhere fast. You know, I had no family. I had no, I was not making any traction. So for me, when I put the bottle down, that was the first awakening into, okay, I'm a human being having a spiritual experience, or actually I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. But I was very confused about my being human, and I was suicidal. So I had, you know, many, many years of suicidal ideation. It's like, it was crazy. I felt like I was like, what are people doing? to the planet, to each other. Like it was just, I couldn't understand being here on the planet. That was, so when I sobered up, it was like, okay, now you got to learn how to be human here. It's like, whoa.
Which is such an interesting experience, because most of us, we accept our humanness, right? We have an ego, we have this body, we go through life, we have things happen to us. And for often, a lot of people have a type of awakening and they go, wait a second, I think there's something else out there. But you, complete opposite. You're this spiritual being going, how can people be so bad? Like, why to do this? And did you find that alcohol was your way that allowed you to process that, or just create the gap so that you could actually exist?
Okay, now our connection's really, I 100% understand what you're saying. And like I say, it was the opposite for me. It was, I've been awake, the whole time. And it was like, oh my God, I have a body. Oh my God, I have to, do things. Because when I sobered up, I was kind of feral. I grew up in a place where there was a lot of neglect. Okay. And there was a lot of like extreme dysfunction. And I basically raised myself from the age of 11 on when my parents split up. So, when I came into recovery, it was like I had to learn how to cook for myself, and how often do you brush your teeth, and just kind of basic stuff. Mm-hmm. So for me, I've always had a clear channel, and I've always had energy coming through, and I've always talked upstairs. I call it upstairs, So it's been integrating that. It's been integrating that for me. That's been the awakening, and that continues to be the awakening for me. How much spirit can I put in this body? How much, what greatness can I offer the world through this body, through this humanness, right? Yeah. And I say that to young channels, like they can't make money because they're not in their body, so they're having all these amazing experiences, but they can't ask for a wage because, you have to be in a body and feel deserving in order to ask for money for what you do, you see.
Which is interesting. You've got this stage in your life, you're 33. I imagine you're an accountant before that. You trained.
No, so this was the interesting thing. This is the interesting thing is that at 33, it's a bit of a story, but I won't go into it, is that I said to myself, okay, I want to learn more about the laws of money in the human world, because I knew how to manifest. And my accountant that me and my partner at the time were working with offered me a job. And when I sobered, and I was like a poet, and I was like, oh, Gary, I'm never going to, accounting, forget it. There I was sobering up. I had no human kind of skills. And I phoned him and I said, Gary, I need a job. And I need to set the terms. This was the thing. Like, I was such a rebel. It's like, oh, I'm going to work for you, but I've got to set the conditions. And he was great. And he's like, yep. So no, like I was not of the matrix world at that point even. And then I entered it and he helped me. And it was like, I had to learn how to count receipts and add numbers up. And then I accelerated and learned the properties of it. And then I said, Gary, can I have my own clients? And he's like, absolutely, I'll mentor you. And then I went on to build a great business out of that. So,
what's interesting about that is, having been, someone who's, in the last 20 years, I've educated thousands of people around wealth creation, and I did it from the numbers, and then have gone to the next stage, which is like, well, in actual fact, there's something else that we need to connect to. And you've done it from the other way. But what strikes me is that, and the way that I often talk to people and lead them into the conversation around, well, what's the money stories? And is that a belief that goes through the rest of your life? Is that money and finances, with you learning how to be human and humanize your earthly experience, let's call it that, finances were the way that you felt there was that societal norm where you could have that conversation. And it's interesting because, I've sat with this for a while going, how can I talk to all of my, property investing people, wealth creation people about this, what seems woo-woo, which is really kind of, wow, this works. And And it is the fact that I feel that money and finances is an easy conversation because it's often where the majority of people feel lack. Is that what you found?
Well, yes. And it's money and materiality always begins as a thought. You see, it always begins before the materiality. Like you have a wish, you have a desire, you have a thought, you put it into your mind, and then the universe will bring it to you on the third dimension in the human realm, right? So whatever you want, you know, you've heard this 1,000 times. It starts though in the mind. It doesn't start on the human plane. Right? You don't even need to know these laws for that to exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And money is about a sense of security. And, you know, like in the energetic body, it's our root chakra. So if there's been damage to our root chakra, which is right at the base of your bum where you sit, you know, you're going to have trouble with money manifestation. You're going to have trouble with creativity. You're going to have trouble with sexuality. So these three are all intertwined, right? In that energetic spot we call chakras. And if you clear that out, then all manner of manifestation happens. You have a great sex life, you have lots of creativity, and the money flows. You see? So we hand in hand. It goes hand in hand.
So you've got this accounting career. And you've had, you know, you've then have an opportunity to see how you can bring all the rest of your knowledge and spirituality together to that. How did that happen? Tell me about that moment where you thought, I could bring this all to one. Because a lot of people have this duality of trying to keep things separate, don't they?
Yeah, well, and I mean, Michael Gerber's book at the time, I can't remember what it's called now, but it was very influential because he said, you know, whatever your business is, it's not really what it is you're selling. Like, what are you really selling? And I was really selling love, and I was really selling education. So that was the bridge for me because I was a writer and an educator prior to moving into accounting. And I'm a published writer. And so I went through the whole publishing world. So I knew I already loved. So I moved that over into the accounting space, and I built my business around boutique businesses, small businesses, artists, people who struggled with valuing themselves. And in that way, my business was about education. So I just did it through numbers. I just did it through tax returns, right? So just like, you know, the woman who owns a pie shop, she's not really selling pies. She's selling comfort. She's selling home. She's selling love, right? Yeah. So that's how the transition happened for me. You know, I was reading that book at the time. Gosh, I wish I could remember it. The E-Myth Revisited. Yeah. The E-Myth Revisited, and the E standing for the entrepreneur, the entrepreneurial myth. Like, you're not really selling what you think you're selling. And then from there, I noticed I was using all spiritual principles of manifestation to help people build their businesses. And I did that when I was in the publishing world as well. So the next logical thing for me was to feel confident enough just to teach those principles without having a tax return or an accounting behind me.
Without having the thing in front to introduce the conversation, going straight for the root.
Correct. And, you know, it was a process. It didn't happen overnight. And I this was all in recovery, as I say. So, you know, the first 5 years in recovery, you don't know what's up or down. And there was zero self-esteem. So that was slowly getting built, slowly. And those clients who were accounting clients also became some of my spiritual clients. So they were me, and I've developed a modality that works in the unconscious. And I started building that, you know, in 2000 when 3 years into my recovery. So they were my guinea pigs. I was testing out my spiritual skills and teaching on my accounting clients because they were so open. Right?
Right. Yeah.
And when I came to Australia, I was going back and forth. I mean, I had that business 18 years, but I closed it after quite a few years of being here, 9, 14, about 5, 6 years, I was going back and forth between Australia and Canada to keep that business going. And I came to Australia and I said, I am not doing accounting. I am going to be full on a spiritual teacher that talks about money. That was my niche. And yeah.
Now, a quick word from our sponsor, Your Success Club. Your Success Club is a group of vibrant, abundance seekers. If you subscribe to exitthematrix.io, we are going to drop you into the club room, which has lots of goodies, resources, and a free gift just for subscribing. Now, back to the podcast. And prosperity, right? It's about bringing prosperity to people's lives so they can live that life of abundance and then choose with freedom what they want to do, with whom they want to do, and how they want to do it, like uplifting and going to Costa Rica.
Precisely. Because abundance to me is not just about money. It's about having time. It's about having relationships. It's about having health. Right? It's a whole bunch of things. I mean, I have 5 pillars of my abundance, right? So it's not just money. Money is part of it. Absolutely. And people get hung up on the money bit and they forget about all the other stuff. And it's like, no. Like, you have all the money in the world and you won't be happy. Right? Yeah. But people aspire for that. And when they get it, that's when they realize, oh my goodness, I got nobody to spend this with. Right? Where are my children? Where are my significant relationships? So
I think it's what my realization was, that for wealthy people, the commodity is time, not money. They realize, as a young person, you're exchanging your time for money. And as you get older and wealthier, you're exchanging, money for time. And
your value for money, it's your value, not your time anymore. Yeah.
So take me to working with Dalai Lama, Bishop Tutu. Like, how did that go from this kind of, okay, I'm going to start, accepting that this is my word, how I'm going to turn up in the world and share with others. How did that happen for you?
Well, again, it was another turning point, and it was in that self-esteem place where I was like, there is more to me than just these numbers and accounting. And I was known in Vancouver as, I was the president of a Buddhist association. And I was very, very active in the Vancouver spirituality scene, if you will. And this is like in the late 90s, early 2000s. And the first person that I also did tour coordination. So there was a nun that came from India to Canada to do some fundraising, and I did her tour in Canada to help her fundraise. And people watched that and saw that, and we raised, I don't even remember, like maybe $50,000 for her over a course of 4 or 5 days. And there was one person in particular who I introduced her to, and from there, he was the one who brought the Dalai Lama to Vancouver. So he invited His Holiness to Vancouver for a 5-day event. And he just, he knew me, and he just said, do you want to coordinate the spiritual teaching of His Holiness? Right. And we're talking big. We're talking 25,000 people. We're talking $250,000. Like, so that was the entree in, at that point. And Bishop Desmond Tutu was part of that. So there were 3 Nobel laureates. There was Bishop Tutu, His Holiness, and a woman named Shirin Ebadi, who had just that year won the Nobel Peace Prize. She was a judge that was imprisoned in Iran for her liberal views. And she had been, then she was under house arrest, and then she was exiled. So she was there, and there was Joanne Archibald, who was a First Nations elder, and then a Jewish rabbi, an elder. So I was hanging out with them for 5 days. His Holiness and Bishop Tutu did a conversation together, which I also coordinated. So it was a public talk, and they talked about the compassion of the heart. And again, it was a stadium of 25,000 people, and all the logistics that go into that. And I mean, beautiful, funny stories. And just there was just one little quick story. So His Holiness and Bishop Tutu are in the green room together, and His Holiness had already been pinned for the mic, the on mic, and they were all chatting and just yucking it up and everything. And just the words came out of Bishop Tutu's mouth was, "I want to be like him." And I looked at him and I'm like, yeah, we all want to be like him. Like, give me some context, please. And he wanted his mic, just something simple like that. I want his.
We wanted a mic as well, but we're like, yeah we want to be like him.
We want to be like him too. Like, I want to be like him, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And then, just on the mundane level, okay, you want to be mic'd up. Just all those tiny little stories in hanging out with these, multiple luminaries. They're holding such wisdom. And then from there, the United Nations came on board. They asked me to coordinate a spirituality and sustainability teaching, roundtable for the United Nations came to Vancouver for a World Urban Forum. So because I did this and I was asked to do that, and then I was invited to India to be part of an international delegation of spiritual leaders. So by this time, I'm getting known as a spiritual leader and adept in Vancouver. And
it all started with saying yes, right? Saying yes to the opportunity.
And meditating, right? Like 1994 was the first time, I'm going to wing it back to prosperity. I was doing meditations on prosperity, and I said to my divine, I was sitting there, it's like, show me the money? And I asked the question, so you're telling me that if I meditate, you're going to pay my rent? And the voice came back and said, yes, Angela, yes. And I was precisely because I was working like a Dickens. Like I was a sales rep at the time, and it was like, I can't manufacture more time. How can I want to make more money, but I don't have any more time. And then I was introduced to using spiritual principles of calling in energies that are greater than me to pave the road. I don't have to do it with my humanness. It's my humanness. We might have to
ask you to share your prosperity meditations with us.
Well, that's my gift to people. Whoever hears this, those are the meditations that I did in 1994. Yes, and I have so there's 40 days worth, and there are 10 meditations that you repeat 4 times. So it goes deeper and deeper. Perfect. Each time. Yeah.
Just a interesting aside, it's there was a quote I came across from Bishop Desmond Tutu that really alerted me to the fact that, teaching people about wealth creation was missing the main conversation. And he said something similar to this, which was, I got tired of pulling drowning people out of the river, so I went upstream and stopped them jumping in. And I think it is those unconscious beliefs around money and unconscious beliefs around prosperity that do hold people back, is what I'm hearing from you.
100%. 100%. And it all goes back to early childhood. I mean, I know people hate to hear that. However, when we move into the unconscious, that's where the resistances are. That's where the blockages are. And I say to people who've got money blocks, you're probably making your money decisions from 3 or 4-year-old perspective.
Very confronting, right?
From safety, from security, from it's not going to be enough, who's going to take care of me? That's a 3 or 4-year-old perspective, as opposed to a more adolescent perspective even, or a mature perspective is, you will always be provided for. You don't get brought to the earth to be forgotten, right? You don't get taken to the top of the heap to just get dropped off into a junk pile. It's just not the way. So it's like we have to go into the unconscious and find out what are we really believing and change it there. And I've got the modality to do that. So that's the beautiful thing.
And I think that the fact is that we are set for success when we are gifted life, and it's us getting in the way of our own success that creates where we are with not having the abundance of prosperity that we want.
We are brought here exactly that, for success, and we are programmed then to fail.
Angela, you are incredible. I'm so glad. Your little interesting story about how you met and worked with Dalai Lama and the Bishop Desmond Tutu, etc. It just blows my mind. And you and what you do and what you bring to the world and your gifts and your spirit and your teachings. We're going to drop below all the ways that you can work with Angela Herenrich, and in the future we will be also putting down a bit of a link there to her 40 days, is it, of prosperity meditations?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being such an amazing guest and sharing with us your story.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm brilliant to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, as always, here is to your success.
Thank you for listening to Exit the Matrix, Stories of Success. Make sure you subscribe to future episodes at www.exitthematrix.io. Until next time, here's to your success.